Platting Board will come to order. This is August 1st, 2012. Will Secretary please do the roll call?
Lendell Story.
Here.
Steve Abel.
Here.
Ken Fuller.
Here.
Jody Moses.
Here.
Daniel Young.
Present.
Brent Cole. Here. Anthony Cage.
Here.
Trevor Edmondson.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Do we have any agenda changes? No agenda changes. Thank you. May we, I ask for approval for the action summaries. Mr. Edmondson and Mr. Abel's the second. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing and seeing none, the action the summary of actions are approved. Do we have minutes? Next item on the agenda is special order of business, disclosures. Are there any disclosures tonight? Mr. Edmondson.
In case S11927-1 Panorama Subdivision, I'd like to disclose that my firm, the Peterson Group, utilizes Tony Hoffman and the Boutte Company for various projects that we're involved in. Myself or my firm does not have any financial interest or any private interest in this case, so I feel like I can act impartial.
Thank you. May I have a motion to direct Board Member Edmondson to participate, please? Mr. Cage and Mr. Fuller seconds.
In case S11927-1, I move to allow Mr. Edmondson to participate in the case.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Motion passes. Mr. Edmondson, you're directed to participate. Are there any other disclosures? Mr. Fuller.
Well, last meeting we had conflict of interest notice on this same project. Are we still under the same?
Yes. Are you talking about Panorama case S11927?
Yes.
Yes, you should make that disclosure again.
Make it again, okay. Well, it's been our bank for multi-generations, and I don't see any conflict, but I think I need people to be aware of it. We have many millions of dollars at loan with First National.
Thank you. Since that's just a disclosure without a potential conflict, you can participate. Are there any other disclosures or conflicts of interest? I have several. In the case S11927-1 Panorama Subdivision, I declare that I have a conflict of interest and I request to be recused. May I have a motion directing me to participate, and then we'll vote. Oh, excuse me. The conflict is that I am working directly on this project for the petitioner, and I'm working with the petitioner's representatives. Mr. Cole.
would move the chairman to participate in case number S-11927-1.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller, seconds. Is there any discussion? Then we'll vote. A yes vote directs me to participate. A no vote directs me to be recused. That motion fails. I will be recused. The other disclosure I have is in the case S11942-1, Anchorage Cemetery Subdivisions, Tracks 1A through 20A. My firm has worked for the petitioner and their representatives in the past. We have no ongoing work with either the petitioner or their representative. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. May I have a motion directing me to participate? Mr. Story makes the motion. Mr. Story, would you speak to your motion, please?
First, I move to direct Mr. Young to participate in case number S11942-1. I feel that, based on Mr. Fuller's testimony, that he can remain impartial in this case.
That you mean not Mr. Fuller, but
I'm Mr. Young.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmondson's seconds. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? The motion passes, and I will participate in case S11942-1, Anchorage Cemetery Subdivision. We will now move to the public hearing.
Hey, Dan, I have a couple more disclosures.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Edmondson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In case S11942-1, Anchorage Cemetery Subdivision, my firm, the Peterson Group, utilizes the petitioner's representative, Dow Engineers, on various projects that we have. In this case, I feel there's no conflict. I have, or personally have, or our company doesn't have any financial interest in the project or personal interest, private interest in the project. So I feel like I can act impartial in this case.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Board Member Edmondson to participate, please? Mr. Story.
In the case S11942-1, I move to direct Mr. Edmondson to participate in the case. Based on his testimony, I feel that Mr. Edmondson can be impartial.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller seconds. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? The motion passes, and Mr. Edmondson, you're directed to participate.
One more.
And you have one more disclosure?
Yeah. In case S11939-1, ACS subdivision, my firm, the Peterson Group, utilizes Lounsbury & Associates for engineering services on various projects that we have. My firm and myself, we have no financial interest or private interest in this project, so I feel like there's no conflict and I can act impartial in this case.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Board Member Edmondson to participate, please? Mr. Story.
I move to direct Mr. Edmondson to participate in case S11939-1, ACS subdivision, and based on Mr. Edmondson's testimony, I feel that he can remain impartial.
Thank you. Mr. Kane seconds. Is there any discussion or opposition? Hearing and seeing none, this motion passes. Are there any other disclosures or conflicts of interest? Hearing and seeing none, we will move into the public hearing. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedures. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., have 5 minutes, and individuals will be allowed 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the board and its scheduled public hearings shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either A, a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or B, an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. The first case tonight is case S11928-1, Birch Grove subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for subdivision of one lot into 2 lots with a variance from AMC 2180-010, dedication of streets. The subject parcel is zoned R6 and is currently occupied by a single-family home. To the east is Sunnyvale subdivision, which is zoned R6 and developed as large lot single-family residential neighborhood. To the south and west is undeveloped property that is zoned PC and R3SL. This site is steeply sloped to the south and drops roughly 100 feet towards Eagle River. There is also a small stream that crosses the northern portion of the property in a gully that is roughly 10 feet deep. Access to the site is via Westlake Drive and Spring Street through Sunny Valley subdivision. Westlake Drive and Spring Street are improved to rural standards. The right-of-way is 60 feet, and the roadway is strip paved 24 feet wide. There's also 2 sections of Class B wetlands on the northern and southern portions of the site. The Class B wetlands extend into the undeveloped lands to the south and west of this site. The site is a large parcel that is on the edge of an undeveloped property to the east and south. Future road connections and development plans in this area are unknown at this time. There are also significant wetlands throughout the area that will make development and road construction complicated. Access through this general area of Eagle River, eventually providing a connection to Driftwood Bay Drive, is needed. For this reason, 2 plat notes are on the existing underlying plat. Plat Note B addresses the need to dedicate an east-west road connection and provide required road improvements, if applicable. Plat Note C requires 2 trail easements. To address Plat Note B, the proposed plat includes a 60-foot public use easement across the property connecting Spring Street and Westlake Drive to the undeveloped property to the west. The existing Plat Note C describes 2 trail routes that would cross the property. The paved trail would follow the road alignment while the unpaved trail skirts the southern wetlands. The proposed plat, however, provides for both trails to follow the road alignment. The administration supports this proposal. Improvement of the road and or trails would exceed what the municipality could reasonably require at this time, because this subdivision is only for 2 lots and both lots have frontage onto Spring Street, which is improved to municipal standard. With the dedication of the 60-foot public use easement and the 30-foot trail and utility easement, the Community Development Department has determined that both plat notes B and C have been satisfied and do not need to be carried forward. There is a variance request with this application. I'll address that, each standards. This is a variance request for the requirement to dedicate streets. It's a variance from 2180-010, which would require the dedication of 30 feet along the eastern property boundary of proposed Lot 1A between the proposed 60-foot public access easement and the northern hairpin turn of Westlake Drive. The department finds that all four standards are met and recommends approval of this variance. The first standard, staff finds that this standard is met. There are special circumstances affecting the property that the strict application of the subdivision regulations would clearly be impractical. Class B wetlands and the stream bisect the subject parcel to the north. Improvement of Spring Street to the north hairpin turn of Westlake Drive is not financially feasible. Standard number 2, staff finds this standard to be met. Granting of this variance would not be detrimental to the public welfare. Both lots have legal and physical access and frontage onto a publicly dedicated street. The additional traffic generated by creating one additional lot is de minimis. Both traffic engineering and private development support this variance request. Standard number 3, staff finds this standard to be met. The intent of the subdivision regulations regarding street dedication is to provide the municipality the opportunity to obtain necessary streets when the property is subdivided. In some situations, such as this one, given topography, wetlands, and streams, it is apparent that dedication of Spring Street is not necessary because improvements are impractical. Standard number 4, staff finds this standard to be met. Undue hardship would result from the strict compliance of the subdivision regulations. Given that the right-of-way will never be improved, requiring dedication would create an undue hardship for the applicant. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the variance from AMC 2180-010, which requires dedication of a 30-foot along the eastern boundary of proposed Lot 1A between the proposed 60-foot public access easement and the northern hairpin turn of Westlake Drive, and approval of the plat for 18 months subject to conditions A through F as indicated in your staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions with staff? Will the petitioner's representative please come forward? State your name, spell your last name, please, and let us know if you wish to reserve any time for rebuttal.
My name is Robert Carlson. I'm the owner of the property.
Thank you. Do you wish to reserve any time for rebuttal?
No.
Okay. You may proceed. This is your time to give a presentation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just interject, I believe, Mr. Carlson, are you in agreement with the conditions of the plat? And you have no comments? Okay.
Okay, thank you. You have 9 minutes and 59 seconds reserved for rebuttal. Is there anybody else wishing to testify in this case? Anybody at all? Hearing none and seeing none. Would you like to use any of your rebuttal time, Mr. Carlson? Okay, the public testimony or public hearing is closed, and the matter now lies in the hands of the board. May I have a positive motion for approval of this plat? Approval of the variance. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you. In case S11928-1, I move to approve the variance from AMC 21.80.010.
Thank you. Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Regarding the variance, I find that specifically the granting of this variance wouldn't be detrimental to public welfare. Supported by the staff packet, I believe that both lots will have dedicated access. or physical access onto the frontage road and a dedicated street. I also feel the other standards have been met, but specifically that one I wanted to point out with regard to the public welfare.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this matter? Are there any additional findings? I have some. I find that the Class C wetlands do constitute a special circumstance that affect this property and do necessitate or warrant the variance. I believe that the information presented by the staff supports the variance, that not only the hardship but the financial impacts, and I'm going to support this motion. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing none and seeing none, this motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. May I have a motion for approval of the plat for 18 months with the conditions? Mr. Kange. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, in case S11928-1, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to the conditions outlined, it looks like A through F in our package.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
I tend to vote in favor of this, approve the plat, again, subject to these conditions, A through F.
Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, the motion passes for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions A through F. And for clarity, I want to say that the last vote was for the approval of the variance. Or no, the prior vote was for the approval of variance was passed. Thank you.
We're going to take a brief minute to change over from the chair to the vice chair, so give us just a second here. He's recused from the next case.
The next case on the agenda is S11927-1, Panorama Subdivision. Can we have the staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. This is a request to subdivide plus or minus 100-acre parcel into 32 lots and 1 tract of land. This is a phased development with build-out occurring in 4 to 6 phases. The property is generally located east of Golden View Drive, west of Bear Valley, and south of Rabbit Creek. The property is zoned R7SL. Providence Point subdivision to the west is zoned R7. Shangri-La subdivision to the northwest. Shangri-La East Estates East subdivision to the northeast, Burlwood subdivision to the east, Mount McKinley subdivision to the southeast, and Mountainside Village subdivision to the south are all zoned R10SL. The Platting Board reviewed a preliminary plat for the same property on September 7, 2005. In 2007, a revised plat was submitted for review, but was subsequently postponed by the Platting Board. As this property has special limitations, the special limitations are established by Assembly Ordinance 8421. There are 3 special limitations on the property, and I'll go through each one real quick. The average dwelling units per acre shall be not greater than 0.8. The minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet, and only a single-family detached structure is permitted. The proposed lots range from 2.2 acres to 3 acres, with the average lot size being about 2.7 acres. This makes for an average dwelling unit per acre of 0.32, well below the maximum 0.8 allowed. The preliminary plat depicts wetlands on proposed lots 3, 4, 23, and 25. 3 wetlands areas were identified and shown on the map included at the end of this report. Wetland Area A is located along the west boundary of lots 3 and 4 adjacent to Providence Point Drive within Providence Point subdivision that abuts the western petition site boundary. Wetland E is located within proposed lot 25. Drainage from this wetland flows northeast and outfalls to the Class B wetlands on the property to the north, Shangri-La Estates East subdivision. Wetland C is located within Lot 23. This wetland is fed by a drainage way that crosses Lot 22. The Corps of Engineers issued a preliminary jurisdictional determination in November of 2006. As a condition of plat, this jurisdictional determination will need to be updated and submitted to the Wetlands Coordinator. Petition site is located in an area where there are well-documented drainage and glaciation problems with existing subdivisions. The current subdivision design directs stormwater from the proposed rights-of-way to a wetland on lots 3 and 4 and the headwaters of a creek that runs through Providence Point subdivision to the west. The creek enters Providence Point subdivision phase 9 on lot 41. There is no dedicated drainage easement for this lot on the plat. The creek then travels down the lot and through a culvert under Manorwood Point Circle, which is a private roadway and is not dedicated right-of-way. It then travels through lot 12, which does have a platted drainage easement, and then enters a pipe system in Waterford Point Circle, which is also a private roadway. The pipe runs downhill on Waterford Point Circle and enters Providence Point Drive, a dedicated right-of-way. The pipe then outfalls to a drainage easement on Lot 2, Phase 7 of Providence Point subdivision, and travels through Lots 1, 6, and 7 of Ptarmigan Roof subdivision. The design also directs stormwater runoff through Lots 24 onto Shangri-La Estates East subdivision, Lot 5. The channel is defined as an ephemeral channel and is governed by Plat 2011-62, Notes 2, 3, and 12, as approved by the Platting Board. Watershed Management Services has identified 5 drainage issues associated with this subdivision, and they are outlined on pages 16 of your staff packet. A direct connection to Providence Point has been determined to be unreasonable based on the cost estimates by the petitioner. As a result, primary access to the subdivision will be via Lost Horizon Drive. Lost Horizon Drive provides a future connection to the unsubdivided parcel to the south. Egan Drive, running east from Lost Horizon Drive, will provide a future connection to Burlwood subdivision. Mountain Breeze Drive running north from Egan Drive will provide a connection to the platted Mountain Breeze Drive within Shangri-La Estates East subdivision. Mountain Breeze Drive will connect to Mountain Air Drive, which will eventually connect to Rabbit Creek Road. That being said, staff would like to recommend approval of this plat, subject to conditions that were laid on the revised conditions that were laid on the table tonight and are before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board to the staff? Seeing none, we are now open. Meeting's open for public hearing. Can we have the petitioner's presentation? Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Tony Hoffman. I work for the Boutte Company, and we are representing the petitioner, First National Bank, in the case before you.
Would you like to save any time for rebuttal?
I'd like to save 2 minutes for rebuttal. Give me the buzzer. 2 minutes.
Thank you.
First of all, tonight I'd like to point out Dave Grenier, Triad Engineering, is the engineer of record, and he's with me here tonight. There's no representative of First National Bank. They're leaving it to us tonight. First of all, a little history of the project. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for their working with us on these conditions. It may seem like we're being a little obstinate on these conditions and these changes we've requested, and if you look at them, when you look at the agreement we came to, they're pretty minor, but we have to be real careful when we look at these conditions and the exact wordage of them. We need to make sure that it's clear, because in a year, 2 years down the road, when we're talking with the municipal planners and the department engineers, trying to get the plans finalized and get a plat recorded, we need to make sure that the wordage is very clear and there's no ambiguity in it. Staff always understands what they're trying to say, but sometimes when we look at it a little more from a different standpoint, it's not real clear. So we ask them to help us clarify it, and that's why you see some of these minor tweaks in the conditions. Overall, the conditions from where we started really aren't that different, and I'd be glad to explain those to you when we're done. A little history of the project. In circa 2000, as most people know, the property was bought by one of the developing teams in Anchorage, and they went about a couple different plans. They tried to get approved a much higher density than what we're proposing tonight. They were trying to basically bring the type of development at Prominence Point up, some 4,000 square foot and less lots onto this area, and with quite a bit of road improvement and other water and sewer, public water and sewer up the roads, and they had quite a bit of trouble trying to get it approved. In the end, they never could. However, while they were working through the process, they did go and do some clearing on the potential road alignments. They didn't have a fill and grade permit. They didn't have the proper permit. So that's why you see some of the clearing that happened. They didn't disturb any of the road mat. They didn't disturb any of the vegetation. They did, however, clear cut, and it did create a bit of a scar, just a visual scar in the land. And we looked at the original alignment when we first came in, First National Bank, and we just couldn't support it as developing consultants. Also, during the time that we started looking at it, the Hillside District Plan actually brought the AWW sewerage line down to the west boundary of our property. So we can't have extended water and sewer into our property. So we're stuck with on-site septic and well, which is fine. Because when we really started looking at the property, we couldn't conceive of bringing water and sewer up into it. It didn't pencil. It created too much trouble, too much cutting, too much. It's too challenged. We'll call it terrain challenged. So we settled on 2.5 acre lots, and we feel it's a real good fit with the surrounding developments. It's a much better plan. We feel less roads. It's a very simple plan. With some very, very nice lots. I would like to show one of the main concerns that has been brought up by the public, and you'll see it in the Rabbit Creek Community Council comments, is they're concerned about the clear cutting that I spoke of and the clearing that happened, and that is creating an erosion problem downstream. And You'll find out when you go up there. Is this on? Can we turn email on? Elmo? Where's the power? How do I always do this? Ah, gosh, tell me that. Okay. May not work very well. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is what you're looking at here. I realize this picture isn't coming out very well, but what you're looking at here is a picture looking south from the north access point on the property, which is, the name of the road is Lost Horizon Drive. What's happened out here is this vegetation has completely overtaken and completely covered the ground. It's at least waist high in places, and when you look at it, we are more than confident that this type of coverage that is endemic all across the property is more than adequate to stabilize and would meet any sort of ADEC stabilization requirements. So there's no erosion that's happening on the property, no mud is flowing off the property. That is just not happening. And these were taken actually 2 weeks ago, the night after you guys weren't here. I went up there, it was a beautiful night, we took pictures, and I really wanted to look at it. And that grass and all, it's waist high. The owners have blocked off the property on the north-south ends. You see this stuff. Kids still come up here, and First National Bank is still trying to keep the kids off the property. They put gates up. Kids still get in there, but they're making a real effort to keep the trespassers off the property. Other than that, we did attend the Rabbit Creek Community Council meeting, and we really feel that this project and our design meets the intent of the Hillside District Plan, and the large lots are really the best solution we can find for the property. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's Trevor. Mr. Edmondson.
Mr. Hoffman, I just have a question. You guys are supporting all of the department's recommendations and the revised recommendations that we were given tonight?
Yes, we are. And if you have any questions about them, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thanks.
That's it? Okay.
Are there any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we are now open hearing to public testimony. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak? Any rebuttal? Seeing none, we're now going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve the case. Mr. Cole.
In the case S11927-1, Panorama Subdivision, would move to approve of the plat for 60 months, subject to the recommendations of staff set forth in pages 17, 18, 19, and 20. You want me to go through and list all those?
I don't think we need to. Thank you. And Mr. Fuller.
And that's in the amended recommendations that we've received today, not the original one.
Yes, thank you. Can you speak to your motion, please?
Well, based on the testimony brief received today and the comments that are in the package, along with the fact that no one here is objecting, it appears that the package that's been provided and that supports the department's recommendations in all respects. I would incorporate the package as support for my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Mr. Edmondson.
Yeah, I just have a question for clarification on the motion. There's two conditions on an unnumbered page there. I'm not sure if that'd be page 21, but are those conditions covered under Mr. Cole's motion?
I believe Mr. Cole stated the revised conditions, and I believe that that's revised condition 11 and additional condition 18 that were included in his motion.
Through the chair. Well, my motion was to move to adopt the subdivision of one tract of land into 32 lots and one tract of land subject to the approval of the plat for 60 months with the department's recommendations, including the recommendation at number 3, number 11, number 13, 14G, and 18.
So just for the record, I'm going to clarify that those were revisions that were laid on the table today by staff, and specifically condition 18 is a new condition, and the rest are revisions.
Yes, madam.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, the motion is approved.
And we're going to take a brief minute here to bring the chair back to the meeting. Oh, you need to, excuse me, could you read the appeal process?
The appeal process, adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or B, an appeal of the board's final appealable decisions per AMC 21.30.
Okay, and Chair Young will return to the meeting and just give us a moment to change over.
Meeting is back in order. May we please have staff's presentation for the Anchorage Cemetery subdivision tracks 1A through 20A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of 20 tracts into 20 different tracts with right-of-way vacation of the portions of East 7th Avenue, East 8th Avenue, and the internal streets affecting U.S. Survey number 1257, and variance from AMC 2180-330 design standards, lot frontage and access. The property is located on the south side of south of East 6th Avenue, east of Cordova Street, and north of East 9th Avenue. The reason for this platting action is to vacate the unnecessary rights-of-way and thus providing the cemetery additional burial space. The proposed lot is zoned PLI, Public Lands and Institutions District. All proposed tracts conform to the PLI district requirements for lot size and width. AWU water main in Cordova Street serves a private system to all 20 tracts. AWU water mains must be protected by a 30-foot wide easement or rights-of-way centered over the main. The petitioner will be required to dedicate an easement over the water line or convert the public system at Cordova Street to a private system. There's a vacation request with this preliminary plat. The petitioner is requesting vacation of portions of East 7th Avenue, East 8th Avenue, and the internal streets affecting U.S. Survey U.S. Survey number 1257. Reviewing agencies have either no comment or no objection to this vacation request. The rights-of-way are not constructed and are not needed for traffic circulation. The rights-of-way appear to be access to municipal need. Staff has no objection to this vacation. There's also a variance request. This variance request is for relief from AMC 2180-330, requiring all lots to have frontage on a publicly dedicated street. There are 4 standards required for granting a variance. I'll go through each one. Standard number 1, staff finds this standard to be met. There are special circumstances or conditions affecting the property that would make strict application of the provisions of the subdivision regulations clearly impractical, unreasonable, or undesirable to the general public. Petition site is located within the Anchorage Cemetery. The existing internal access routes are for staff, visitors, and or funeral attendees and not for use by the general public. The internal tracts of this subdivision are the location of burial plots and requiring frontage on the publicly dedicated street would be unreasonable and undesirable. Standard number 2, staff finds this standard to be met. The granting of this variance would not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the area. This site is used as a cemetery and is not proposed to change. Standard number 3, staff finds this standard to be met. The granting of this variance would not nullify the intent or purpose of the subdivision regulations or the comprehensive plan. Granting of this variance will allow the Anchorage Cemetery to continue to operate as it has since the early 1900s. Standard number 4, staff finds this standard to be met. Undue hardship would result from strict compliance with the specific provisions or requirements of the subdivision regulations. Strict compliance with the subdivision regulations would restrict the use of the cemetery and create a significant hardship with regards to maintenance and operations for the cemetery. That being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the variance, approval of the vacation, and approval of the plat, subject to the conditions listed on page 7 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? We'll open this to the public hearing. Will the petitioner's representative please come forward, state your name, spell your last name for us, please, and let us know if you'd like to reserve some time for rebuttal.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Tanya Hickok, Hickok. I am a civil engineer and planner with Dell HKM, and tonight we're representing the municipality and the subdivision of the Anchorage Cemetery and associated vacations for right-of-way, as well as the variance. We have reviewed the staff packet. We don't have any questions or comments. We agree with everything as far as the conditions of approval are concerned. and be happy to answer any questions you had.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner's representative? I don't see any. You have 9 minutes and 49 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you.
Is there anybody wishing to testify tonight? Anybody at all? Hearing and seeing none, would you like to use any of your rebuttal time? Thank you. The petitioner's representative signifies no. We're going to close the public hearing, and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion for the approval of the variance? Mr. Story.
In case S-11942-1, Anchorage Cemetery Subdivision, Tracks 1A through 20A, I move for the approval of the variance request from AMC 21.80.330.
Thank you. And
based on the condition of recording a suitable plat within 18 months of approval.
thank you. Ms. Moses seconds. First off, Mr. Story, would you speak to your motion, please?
I feel that the standards have been met and conform to the 4 conditions of the variance request. I believe that the standards have been met for variance request or standard 1. I do believe that this would clearly be impractical and reasonable and undesirable to the public. I also believe that number 2 standard appears to be met. I believe that the site is used as a cemetery and it's not proposed to change. Number 3 has been met. Granting of this variance will allow the Anchorage Cemetery to continue to operate as it has since the early 1900s. And number 4 appears to be met. Again, the strict compliance with the subdivision regulations would restrict the use of the cemetery and create a significant hardship with the maintenance and operations for the cemetery.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Any additional findings? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have a positive motion for the approval of request for right-of-way vacation? This is for portions of East 7th Avenue, East 8th Avenue, and the internal streets affecting the survey number 1257. Mr. Story makes the motion.
In the case S-11942-1, Anchorage Cemetery Subdivision, Tracks 1A through 20A, I move for the approval of the request for the right-of-way vacation of portions of the East 7th Avenue, East 8th Avenue, and the internal streets affecting U.S. Survey number 1257, subject to condition number 1, recording a suitable plat within 18 months of approval.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Story, would you speak to your motion, please?
Based on the staff's presentation and the information contained in our packet, I believe that there's no reason not to approve.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have a positive motion for approval of the plat for 18 months with conditions, please? Mr. Story.
In the case S-11942-1, Anchorage Cemetery Subdivision, Tracks 1A through 20A, I move for the approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 4, shown on page 7 and 8 of our packet.
Thank you. And Mr. Cole seconds the motion. Mr. Story, would you speak to your motion, please?
Again, I concur with the findings of the staff's report and feel that it conforms to the standards.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. Okay, starting here. Adoption of the written decision of the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either A, written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or B, an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. The next case is S11939-1 ACS subdivision. May we have staff's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat is a request to subdivide one unsubdivided parcel into 3 tracts with a vacation of 2 32-foot road easements running along the north and south property lines. The property is located on the south side of East 36th Avenue, east of Denali Street, and north of Telephone Avenue. Proposed tracts are zoned PLI, Public Lands and Institutions District. Proposed tracts A and B meet the PLI district requirements for lot size and width and are considered conforming lots of record. Proposed tract C, however, does not meet the minimum lot width and size in the district, as tract C does not meet the minimum requirements of AMC 2140-020. The area proposed as tract C will have to be absorbed into proposed tract B. Telephone Avenue is currently a strip paved section on the north side and an urban commercial section on the south side. The north side section does not meet municipal standards for urban commercial area, as the petitioner is not planning any redevelopment on the proposed tracts at this time. Staff finds that no additional improvements are necessary. However, a note shall be added to the plat that states, and I quote, "Any redevelopment of Tract A or Tract B will require peripheral street improvements along the full frontage of Telephone Avenue per AMC 2185-070 B2," end quote. There is a vacation request with this plat. The petitioner is requesting the vacation of 2 32-foot roadway easements running along the north and south property lines. Reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to this vacation request. The easements appear to be excess to municipal need, and staff has no objection to the vacation of these 2 32-foot roadway easements that run along the north and south property lines. That being said, staff would like to recommend approval of this vacation and plat, subject to the conditions listed on pages 7 and 8 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Will the petitioner's representative please step forward and state your names?
Good evening. I'm Ken Ayers, AYERS, with Lounsbury & Associates, representing ACS tonight. Essentially, these vacation of these roadway easements are from an original deed back in 1952. They're certainly in excess of the public need. The property is fully developed with parking lots at this time, and we would appreciate your approval of the vacation and approval of the plat, subject to staff's conditions as submitted. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner's representative? Thank you. You have 9 minutes and 37 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you. I don't think I'll need it.
I'm sorry?
I don't think I'll need it. Thank you.
Probably not. Is there anybody wishing to testify in this matter tonight? Anybody at all? Hearing none and seeing none, would you like to use any of your rebuttal time? No. Okay, and we're going to close the public hearing to public testimony. The matter now lies in the hands of the board. May I have a positive motion? Or were there any questions or discussion before we? May I have a positive motion for approval of the vacation request for the 32-foot road easements running along the north and south portion, property lines? Mr. Kange?
In case S11939-1, I move to approve the request to vacate the two 32-foot road easements running along the north and south property lines, subject to condition 1, recording a suitable plat within 18 months.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller seconds. Mr. Kange, will you speak to your motion, please?
Sure. Based on the testimony and use of the property, I find that there's no need for this amount of buffer on this road, given the traffic conditions and patterns. That's my finding.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Since there's no discussion, I just want to say that I find that the easements appear to be in excess of municipal needs, and I will be supporting this motion. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing none and seeing none, the motion passes. I would request a motion for approval of the plat for 18 months with conditions, please. And Mr. Kange.
Again, in case S11939-1, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to the conditions outlined in our packet, conditions 1 through, looks like 3, on pages 7 and 8.
Thank you. Mr. Edmondson seconds. And I just want to make, for clarification, on the recommendations, we have two items, number B3. Can we correct the second one to make it B4? Renumbered. Thank you. Okay.
I amend my motion then, Mr. Chair. Good catch.
Thank you. And Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
In S119391, I find that these conditions in our report and supported by testimony and the staff report are adequate enough, and I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to those conditions, as amended.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? This motion passes. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. Are there any appearance requests? No. Is there any other appearances? No. Are there any persons to be heard? No. Are there any reports? No. Are there any board member comments? No. May I have a motion for adjournment, please? Mr. Edmondson, so moved. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.